So I'd like to thank you for joining me today. I am super excited to have you on. You are actually my 80th episode, so that's super exciting. And so for the first part, can you please explain a little bit about yourself for those who don't know who you are?
Yeah, what's up, Timothy? Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Noah Pacht. I'm an actor, and I graduated college about a year ago. I've been living in New York City, and right now I'm in John Proctor's The Villain on Broadway. I'm understudying two characters, Mason and Lee, and it's my Broadway debut.
That's awesome. And so to start off, what got you into acting as a child?
I've always loved movies. My parents are really big supporters. They don't like work in this world, but they just love it. And so my dad was always watching movies and TV, and my mom loves theater and dance. And so they really like exposed me to it at a young age. And I've always just loved it, especially comedy, like all of the kind of Judd Apatow movies, Will Ferrell, Adam Sandler, Ben Stiller, like
Great people.
everything they've ever done. Yeah, Sacha Baron Cohen, they're kind of all my heroes. And so I think it started being such a fan of comedy and comedy movies, and then it just sort of became a
Yeah.
bigger thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you began performing at age 8 in Houston, Texas, correct?
That's right. Yeah, as a
And
dancer.
so, how did that shape your artistic voice as you moved to places like Carnegie Mellon and Broadway?
It's a great question. I think dance is, I mean, I started as a dancer, and that's super important.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot of life lessons from doing that. Like, you just, I think if you learn to understand your body and the way it moves, and you also learn to observe other people and the way their bodies move, it's really helpful in theater because it's helpful for like playing characters that have a different physicality and move differently maybe than you do. But it's also really interesting for just understanding people, I think, and body language and how I think like kids that grow up dancing, in my experience, um, or doing theater, tend to have a really healthy confidence because you learn how to hold yourself in a space and you're be comfortable in your body, especially at a young age when like your body is changing and everyone is like it's so easy to feel so insecure. And so I think when you're actually studying the body and how it moves, there's sort of like a confidence that comes with that of like, oh, it's one less thing to worry about while you're like going through puberty.
Yeah, for sure. And so, talking about dance, what got you into dancing? What made you want to become a dancer?
I I was so opposed to it at first. I was so opposed to like I didn't have a thing. And I felt like all my friends played sports or played an instrument or some martial art or something. And my parents, they like exposed me to a bunch of stuff and nothing was just quite clicking. I tried playing drums for 6 months and I like hated it and I stopped and then it was at my I've told this story. It was at my brother's bar mitzvah where he party when I was like 8 and I was playing Pokemon and I had my DS. I was sitting in a corner and I did not want to get up and dance. And all my grandparents were like, come dance, come dance. And I was like, I'm not gonna do that. And then my cousin was like, please. And I was like, okay, fine. Because my cousin's like my best friend.
Yeah.
Shout out Carmel. And so she kind of pulled me on the dance floor and I was like, I went dummy. I went stupid. And I was like, I love this. I need to do this every day. And so then I just started taking classes. I started by like doing breakdancing. So I did 6 months or a year of breakdancing before I even started doing like hip hop. Um, and yeah, I just wanted to learn tricks. I thought it was cool. I wanted to be able to do like flips and fun kind of like tumbling, stuff like that. And then it kind of just kept going.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. And so, in high school, you were nominated twice for the Tommy Tune Awards. And so, how did those honors impact your confidence and choices heading into your college and professional career?
It's crazy. So, I mean, it's such a whirlwind. Like the Tommy Tunes are the sort of Houston regional theater, high school theater awards. So they go to every high school in the city basically, and they watch the musical every year, and they'll sort of recognize different kids that are performing. And so uh, I did a musical my freshman year of high school called "It Should Have Been You." It's a great show. It's kind of like under the radar. Most people don't know that musical. It wasn't on Broadway very long. I don't think it did super well when it was on Broadway, but like it's amazing. And we were the first, to my knowledge, we were the first high school to ever do this show. Um, and that was my first musical ever. So it was such a like exciting experience. And I was given a part where I had like one song and it got to do a little dance in it. Um, and I remember all of these kids. that were older than me, like taking me under their wing, and they were like the cool older theater
Yeah.
kids, and being a freshman and like all these juniors, seniors, sophomores taking me under their wing and showing me the ropes, and they'd drive me home and we'd carpool and hang out, and like
The
so I
classics.
remember the day, yeah. And so I remember the day that the like Tommy Tune Award nominations came out, and I didn't even know what that was. I'd never heard of it. Um, and so I was nominated for Best Supporting Actor in a Musical. I was like, okay, what does this mean? Like, that's cool. What does that mean? And basically, it was a bunch of like rehearsals, and I got to meet all these other kids that were nominated. But and I ran into her last week and I told her this story. The person who won that year for Best Leading Actress in a Musical was Jasmine Amy Rogers, who's
Really?
Betty Boop in Boop the Musical. And so
Oh,
when she was a
wow.
senior in high school and I was a freshman, we did the Tommy Tunes together. And I ran into her last week and I was like, you probably don't remember me, but like we did the Tommy Tunes together and like our moms are friends. And it's, I don't know, that was like a really cool thing of just
Yeah.
even then, my freshman year of high school, it's like we both did these Tommy Tunes together. And at that point, I don't want to speak for her, but at least for me, that was like the biggest, coolest thing I could imagine. And now here we are both on Broadway in the same season.
Yeah.
Years later, it was like a pretty cool full circle moment.
Yeah, that's so special. And so, you after high school, you went to Carnegie Mellon. And so, what are some pivotal lessons or moments during your BFA training that still influence your approach to acting today?
Um, don't bite anyone. Only wear fake tattoos in a scene if you really need to. and and that it's a good thing I didn't shave my full body for this one scene. That's basically all I learned in school. No, I learned a lot, but and it was great. But I was telling someone this story that do you know the play Red Speedo?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's like it's about this swimmer and he starts doing steroids and he's like this competitive swimmer and so I did a scene from that and it's like the way we do scenes in college, it's like you have a month maybe to work on a scene. It's not even the full semester, let alone a full year. It's not like doing a full play. It's just like you have a few weeks of rehearsals and then you put up a scene for your classmates and you get feedback. And I did a scene with my friend Savannah, who's in Little Shop of Horrors right now. And we did a scene from Red Speedo and uh and I was like, I'm gonna get like really committed. I'm gonna be the swimmer guy. So I'm gonna get jacked and I'm gonna shave my whole body. I'm gonna start shaving my legs. And of course I didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
And I had like 2 weeks. Like how am I supposed to like turn into
Yeah.
an Olympic swimmer in 2 weeks? But that's a good school story maybe.
Yeah, that's hilarious. And so, your first professional role, if I'm not mistaken, was the role of Chance in Anything's
Yeah,
Possible. And so, I actually watched that to like prepare for the interview.
I
Uh,
know.
but how did this opportunity come about, and what did working with Billy Porter teach you?
The opportunity was sort of just fortunate luck, right place, right time, right age. Billy Porter is from Pittsburgh. He went to Carnegie Mellon, and we get an email from our teachers at Carnegie Mellon the end of my freshman year, like right before summer starts. Billy Porter is coming to Pittsburgh to make a film. It's going to be the first film he's ever directed, and it's sort of going to be it's this high school rom-com, and it's going to be like a love letter to Pittsburgh. And he's doing an open kind of call. He wants Carnegie Mellon students to audition for it. So they're like, if you're interested, just send in your headshot and your resume, and then we'll see what happens. And so I sent it in, expecting never to get anything. This is the first movie I'd ever auditioned for, the first kind of big thing I'd ever auditioned for. I had no idea what to expect or how to do it. And I think that actually really helped because sometimes I think when you know how to do something, it's easy to like get lazy or it's easy to be a little bit less creative. Whereas with this movie, it was like I'm auditioning for a movie. Like how often does that happen? That's
Yeah.
crazy. And so I put like my heart and soul into that audition. It was just like two scenes or whatever, two or three little scenes, and they were just kind of funny scenes for this character, this kind of comedic relief character I played. And I spent like a week every day just running those lines, and I retaped just this audition maybe like 3 or 4 different times with my best friend from home, like on FaceTime, reading the other lines. He's not even an actor, but he's just really funny, and we have the same sense of humor, and so he helped me kind of work it out. Um, and yeah, I just sent in the self tape, and then I heard back like a couple weeks later that I got the part. And so I spent the summer in Pittsburgh, and I met all these cool people, and I learned what it was like to be on a film set. At like I was 19, and so everything's like, whoa, they're giving me
Yeah.
like you come to set, they give you like free pancakes, and I get to like meet all these people that have been in movies, and so it was just like it was crazy. And Billy's amazing. He was a great director, and he really treated the film set like a theater community in terms of like the way we spent time together as an ensemble. A lot of times in movies and TV shows, someone just comes in for a day or a couple days, and it's very separate and it's not as intimate. Whereas theater, you spend weeks or months hanging out and getting to know each other, right? And he really
Yeah.
wanted it to feel like that. So we had all these cast dinners and hangouts, and we watched this a couple like documentaries together as a cast to get inspired. And he was a really strong leader.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so transitioning into theater, you moved from film back into theater with The Merchant of Venice off Broadway. And
Yeah,
so how did that experience compare to working on a film? And did one medium influence how you approached the other?
that's a great question. Yeah, there was a big time lead between those things. So I finished my freshman year of college and I did Anything's Possible, the Billy Porter movie. And then I did college, graduated, and then 3, 4 months after graduating, I started The Merchant of Venice. So this is like in the fall of this, like almost a year ago now, I
Yeah.
started doing Merchant of Venice. And so that was really exciting because it was my first job out of college. It was my first professional theater job. It was off Broadway. It was with some really awesome actors that I've learned and director that I learned a lot from. Um, and so it was really nice to just be back in theater. But it was also interesting because sort of what I was saying about when you learn how to audition or something like that, when you think you know how to do something, in my opinion, I think that can actually get in your way. Although it's really helpful to learn the skills, but it's one of
Yeah.
those things where sometimes you have to learn the rules so that you can break them. Because we spent a whole year in college learning how to do Shakespeare, which was super valuable. I
Yeah.
love my teachers and I loved what I learned. But then this specific version of The Merchant of Venice of Shakespeare that I did, they were like, okay, my director was sort of like, okay, throw all that away. We're doing a totally different thing. Um, and I think I was only able to throw all of that away because I learned it first.
Yeah.
So it's like I did all the work I was taught to do so that I could get to the next step, which is forgetting about the work. But yeah, that is one of the really interesting challenges in any medium, like whether it's theater or film or whatever, is is like you want to learn as much as you can because you want to get good and you want to have all this technique and have tools in your tool belt. But sometimes you also just need to throw all those things away and just do what someone's asking you to do. And so like finding that balance is hard sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And so, from off Broadway to Broadway, you are currently making your Broadway debut in John Proctor's Villain. And so, what were some of your internal and external experiences during your first few moments on the booth stage?
We moved into the theater for tech. And it was my first time that I can think of, I think, being in an empty Broadway theater. And that is like the coolest, most fascinating thing in the
Yeah.
world, where it's an 800 seat house and it's just us in there. It's the cast and our director and all the amazing people that designers for the show. But it was still like with everyone in that building, it would fill up maybe 30 of the seats or something out of 800. And so to to get to see what this theater is like when it's quiet is one of my favorite things about working on Broadway because up until now, my only experience of Broadway, which is amazing in its own way, is you go in to see a show and there's that electricity of everyone's talking and chattering. Ooh, what's the show going to be about? Is it good?
Yeah.
Whatever. And then the stage and the show happens. But to see a Broadway theater when it's asleep, when it's empty, and when no one's there, and you can go up to the mezzanine and be the only person or one of a couple people in this full theater that has so much history, is like one of my favorite things about like this whole job.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, in John Proctor, you are understudying the roles for Lee and Mason. And
Yes.
so, how have you mentally and emotionally prepared to step into varied characters, and how did that challenge you as an actor?
It's challenged me a lot. I've done plays before. I guess the last time I did this probably was in high school, but I've done plays before where in the play I play a couple different characters. But usually they're smaller roles and it's like, some big gimmicky, fun comic show where like you put on a big mustache and whatever. But this has challenged me in a new way where I'm trying to bring life and depth and character to these two boys that are the only boys in the story. And they're very different, and in some ways very different to me, and in some ways there's a lot of parts of myself that are very similar to both of them. Um, and so finding the parts of myself in these boys that I can really relate to, and to try to bring them these characters to life is obviously really fun. That's the job of an actor. That's what it is to act.
Yeah.
But to do both of these things at once, to like have two fully developed characters that you really have to play at the same time and be ready at the drop of a hat. Literally, I could get right now. I could get a text in 5 minutes that I'm on for either of them, and I would just be like, okay, I got to go do it.
Yeah.
No complaints, no time to practice, no time to think. You just have to go. And so that part of understudying is I have to have, or I get to have two completely developed characters, and I get to be ready at any moment to do that. But the unpredictability of you don't know if or when that's ever going to happen, um, it definitely takes focus. I would say the most focus I've ever had to use as an actor.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. And so, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh man, I think like depending on the age varies a lot because it's like 16-year-old self versus 20-year-old self versus like 10-year-old self. It's going to be different. But it's funny because I honestly, I feel like the opposite is true sometimes. I feel like sometimes when I was 16, 17, I had a lot more answers and a lot more wisdom than I do now, honestly. And so um, I would probably ask my 16-year-old self for more advice than I would be giving. But if I had to give advice, I think I would just say, stay true to what you know about yourself, what you know is right, and who you know that you are, even if other people around you don't quite understand it or get it or nourish it in the way that you need,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah, for sure. And so this next question and the final question kind of wraps up, kind of ties into the other one. But what advice would you give to younger performers who like to be performers full time?
I would say keep going, that like determination and focus and taking it into your own hands is the most important thing in the world and the only way you're going to get there because I can't tell you well, for one, I'll start by saying the positive of I can't tell you how many people have been incredibly supportive and how important that is. My parents, my brother, my best friends, my teachers. Like I've had so many people that have just pushed and pushed and pushed me when I've needed it and asked for it, and they've been there. But also, uh, how many people in big ways or very small ways have done the exact opposite and just every step, every success try to diminish or might feel competitive or people just don't understand it or they think it's stupid or they think it's a bad career decision. It's not smart. You're not going to make money. You're not going to be successful. There's so much criticism and there's so much stigma and the first thing everyone in the world wants to do is tell you the odds. And there's like this quote from, I think it's The Pursuit of Happiness, probably. It's some, I think, Will Smith movie. And he's like, just, he's got this scene. It is The Pursuit of Happiness. And he's talking to his son. And he's like, if someone else can't do something themselves, they want to tell you you can't do it. But don't ever take that to heart because the second you do, they're right. But the second you use anyone else's discouragement as motivation and say, no, 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 I will prove to you you're wrong. If you can learn to do that, or if you have that instinct, then I think you'll be successful.
Yeah, for sure. And so that actually wraps up the interview today. I'd like to thank you for joining me.